These are the lobes that I will be representing. So we have the temporal, the frontal, the parietal, cerebellum, occipital, and the brainstem. This will be the outline for my brain, so I have used string, and it is to represent the lobes in the cross-section of the brain. So first we have the frontal lobe, which is the largest part of the cortex. This is involved in memory, planning, decision-making, goal-setting, and creativity. So we have goal-setting, decision-making, organizing, and planning. It also regulates muscle movements, and creativity is represented by the paint and the tools. In the frontal lobe, we also have the broca's and the vernix. The broca's is the production of speech, and your vernix is the comprehension of speech. Next, we have the parietal lobe, which is your sensory, perception, and integration part of the brain. So to represent that, we have what you would use your senses for: visual and smell, auditory, and then we have taste. Next, we have the brainstem. This is located at the bottom of the brain. This handles all your A and S functioning. So this is your blood pressure, your breathing, temperature, heart rate, as well as your arousal and sleep wakefulness. Next, we have your cerebellum. This is also at the back of the brain, and this is involved in balance, muscle control, movement, and posture. It is also your motor skills, and it controls the coordination of especially your hands and your feet. Next, we have the occipital lobe, which allows you to see color, depth, motion, and this is your visual cortex of the brain. Next, we have your temporal lobe, which is at the side of the cerebrum. This handles the processing of auditory information, which we have represented by these words. Also, the understanding of language. In this lobe, it is also your face and object recognition, as well as encoding your memory. All of these parts will be placed inside of my brain layout. So this is how the brain looks at the end. I'll now be going into detail of each lobe and describing why I've put each image there. In the frontal lobe, we have our goal setting, our organization, decision making, and planning. The OPV is here to represent the broca's and the vernix, so the production and the comprehension of speech. These images represent the regulation of muscle movements. And then the paints and the tools are for creativity. In the temporal lobe, this is for processing auditory information. So we have our understanding of language, which we've represented by English, Afrikaans, Xhosa, Zulu, and education. It is also where you have face and object recognition, and where your brain encodes memory. In the parietal lobe, this is where sensory perception and integration happens. So I've decided to represent your senses: visual and smell for the flowers, taste, and auditory. In the occipital lobe, this is your visual cortex. So where you see color, depth, and motion. In your cerebellum, this is where your movement happens, your balance, equilibrium, and posture, and also your coordination of movements, specifically in your hands and your feet. Last, we have the brainstem, and this controls your temperature, your heart rate, your blood pressure, and so on. And that is the final look of the brain. I'll now be answering questions for OPV 122. So 3 aspects that I have learned about the brain or my personality is that 1, I'm not very creative, so this was actually pretty difficult for me to do. 2 is that the brain weighs 1.4 kilograms, which I definitely did not know before. And 3 is about the Broca's area in your frontal lobe. And this is that if you damage your Broca's area and have speech impairment, you can actually reteach yourself how to talk by learning to sing, because you learn to sing in a different part of your brain. Questions that I still have related to the brain and its functioning is what can happen if we use every part of our brain at the same time. So 100% of it at the same time. 2 is how long can the brain actually function and stay alive once removed from the body or when you die. One aspect that I found interesting and have tried about training my brain is last year when I cut my index finger on my right hand. Now I'm right-handed, so for months I could not use my right hand properly, and during COVID I couldn't get it fixed properly, so to this day it is still not repaired. But in this year that this has happened, I've had to use my left hand a lot more than what I used to, and now there's actually things that I do more with my left hand than my right hand. So this is part of me training my brain into using my left hand and understanding how that works instead of my right hand. My name is Tanika de Grey Birch, and thank you for watching my representation of the brain.